After my cousin Lexi stole 8 of my boyfriends in a row, I decided to get even. I took her photos and used them to catfish the most possessive guy I could find online. His name was Silas. 6'2", face like a fallen angel, abs you could do laundry on. More importantly, he was loaded. Once we started talking, I never paid for my own food, clothes, or anything else again. He'd wire me 5 figures out of nowhere just because he felt like it. On our 100th day together, he sent me a picture of a heavy metal chain. Baby, if you ever leave me, I'll lock you up. That was exactly what I was counting on. That same day, I texted him a breakup message, blocked his number, and deleted his contact. Half a month later, Lexi was in the middle of flirting with boyfriend number 9 when the cafe door swung open. Silas walked in. I always knew Silas would come looking for me. I just didn't think he'd find me this fast. He lived on opposite sides of the country. Other than Lexi's real name and face, everything I told him was a lie. But looking at him now, I had to admit the photos didn't do him justice. Seeing that face in person made my heart skip. He didn't even glance at me. His eyes swept the room cold. And then he walked straight toward Lexi. At that exact moment, Lexi was hanging off the arm of the guy I was supposed to be dating. Silas slid right between them, eyes locked on her. Is this guy your boyfriend? Standing next to Silas, my slightly above average boyfriend, looked like nobody. Lexi's eyes lit up. She shoved the guy she'd spent weeks stealing out of the way without blinking. No way. My cousins. They had a fight, and I was just playing peacemaker. She gave me a sugary smile. Avery, come on. You two need to make up already. Just like I expected, the dark look in Silas's eyes cleared the second she said it. His mouth curved into a smile. He stared at her without blinking. I looked down and dug my nails into my palms. Wasn't this exactly what I wanted? With Silas around, Lexi would never steal my boyfriends again. I could finally date like a normal person. I was supposed to be happy. Instead, I kept thinking about the 3 months we spent talking. 3 months of knowing what it felt like to be somebody's whole world. Whenever work got crazy and I skipped meals, my stomach would knot up. Silas would wire me money for breakfast and demand photo proof that I ate. He told me about every boring part of his day. It felt like he was standing next to me, holding my hand. When he found out I liked muscular guys, he basically moved into the gym. Every night, he sent me videos. He'd dim the lights, take off his shirt, and dance just to make me laugh. Even through a screen. You couldn't miss the way he looked at me. Thinking about all of that belonging to Lexi now made my chest hurt. Silas hadn't noticed me at all. He kept his eyes on Lexi. His voice was soft with something dangerous underneath. Since he's not your boyfriend, can I have the job? Lexi lifted her chin and shot me a look of pure triumph. Look at this. Everybody wants me. Nobody wants you. She let the pause stretch just long enough to seem classy, then nodded slowly. Depends on how you treat me. Silas laughed under his breath. You'll be more than satisfied. My knuckles went white. I couldn't make myself look up. My brain punished me by replaying the things he used to whisper to me at night. Baby, don't ever leave me. I can't breathe in a world without you. If you ever walk away, I'll find you, and we'll leave this earth together. I'll admit it. I fell for him. Nobody had ever made me feel like the center of the universe before. But that was exactly why I had to run. They say guys with that kind of obsession never let go once they lock onto someone. Except the face he'd locked onto was Lexi's. All those nights on the phone, when I could hear his breathing go heavy, the face in his head was my cousin's. If I kept playing, I was the only one who'd end up wrecked. So on our 100th day, Silas said he wanted to meet in person. Baby, I've got my ID and my passport ready. The second I see you, we're going to the courthouse. He said his lawyers were already moving his properties and shares into my name before we even signed the marriage license. He wanted me to have a safety net. He said he'd fly us to Europe to plan whatever wedding I wanted. He was ready to hand me the world. The more he talked, the worse it got. None of it was actually mine. So I cut him off, sent a brutal breakup text, and blocked him before he could respond. Lexi's voice snapped me out of it. Avery, Silas is taking me out for dinner. You should come. I knew what she wanted. An audience for her rich, gorgeous new prize. Smart move was to go home. Going would just feed her ego and make me feel worse. I went anyway. At the restaurant, Lexi started ordering platters of seafood. Silas paused and gave her a strange look. Baby, I thought you hated seafood. You said. The smell made you sick. Lexi froze with the menu in her hands. He shot me a quick, calculating glance, then recovered. Well, don't you like it? She gambled and she won. His face cleared. I knew my girl would remember my favorites. I sat there, with my head down, feeling like a ghost at their date. I kept my mouth shut right up until Lexi ordered a giant slice of mango cake for dessert. My chair scraped against the floor. Silas was severely allergic to mangoes, and knowing him, if his girl ordered it, he'd take it as some kind of test and eat the whole thing smiling. It could kill him. The words came out before I could stop them. You can't order that. Silas's head snapped toward me. His eyes went cold. He looked annoyed, but underneath that was suspicion. I scrambled. You already got all the entrees you wanted. I want to swap the dessert for strawberry shortcake. I hate strawberry shortcake. Almost as much as I hated watching the two of them sit there together. I promised myself that was the last time I'd interfere. Whatever happened between them from now on wasn't my problem. They were perfect for each other, I told myself. With Silas keeping her busy, Lexi would leave my love life alone. That was a win. The only answer I got was the ache in my chest. After that dinner, I threw myself into work. I worked myself into the ground trying to sweat Silas out of my system like a fever. Then one night, I walked out of my building and saw him leaning against a car. I thought I was hallucinating. I checked my phone. Past 10. He pushed off the car and walked toward me. My feet wouldn't move. I twisted the hem of my shirt. Silas, what are you doing here? What he said next sent a chill down my spine. Does Lexi have any close friends? The kind who'd have access to her phone? She doesn't feel like the girl I've been looking for. For half a second, I felt something close to joy. Then reality shut it down. So he'd figured out Lexi wasn't the one. What difference did it make? He only loved me because he thought I looked like her. Since he got into town, he hadn't shown the slightest interest in the actual me. Better to let him keep believing than drag the truth out. And blow everything up. I put on a confused face. Really? I thought you two looked great together. Perfect match. Silas stared at me. The silence went on way too long. I'm thirsty. Take me up to your place for a glass of water. He didn't wait for an answer. He walked past me toward the lobby doors. I knew him well enough to know arguing was pointless. I hurried after him, but the second I unlocked my door, my stomach dropped. Sitting on the entry table, tucked between the little decorative pieces, was an old, scratched-up phone. The one I'd used to catfish him after the breakup. I couldn't bring myself to wipe it. When the loneliness got loud, I'd turn it on and read our old messages. It also had all his workout videos and his dance videos. I was so far gone that his shirtless photo was still the lock screen. I lunged for it. Silas had longer legs and faster reflexes. He clicked his tongue. Leaving a piece of junk like this out in the open? There must be some secrets on here. Is it yours or Lexi's? He grabbed it off the table and held it up out of reach. His thumb moved to the power button. It was over. In a few seconds, he was going to find out the girl he poured his soul into wasn't Lexi. It was me. I heard the click as he pressed it, right before he could look at the screen. Instinct took over. I shouted and threw myself at him, stretching as far as I could to grab the phone. I didn't care how insane I looked. His arms went around my waist and caught me. We both froze. I could see the struggle in his eyes. His first instinct was clearly to drop me on the floor, but after a second, he exhaled and sat me down gently. He still kept the phone out of my reach. For a moment, I forgot to panic. He'd caught me. I remembered a voice call where I'd heard a girl scream and something crash on his end. Silas had explained flatly that some girl faked a trip to land in his arms because he was distracted talking to me. She got her hand on his sleeve before he shoved her off. I threw that shirt in the trash. As soon as he got back to his office, he swore no other woman would ever touch him, and he'd never touch anyone else. But he just caught me. Did that mean I was different? Before I could finish that thought, his voice came from above my head, low and amused. Why are you panicking now? I really want to know what you're hiding. He lifted the phone over his head and hit the power button again. I couldn't reach it, even on my toes. I shut my eyes and waited for the explosion. Then I heard him mutter, "Why won't it turn on?" I opened one eye. Black screen. Dead battery. Then I remembered I'd stayed up until 2 in the morning watching his old dance videos. And forgot to charge it. Silas leaned down, his face inches from mine. "Avery, where are you hiding?" I found my voice. "What does it matter? I'm not Lexi, so nothing about me has anything to do with you." His mouth twitched. "Fair enough. You have nothing to do with me. I'm leaving." When the door shut behind him, my knees gave out, and I slid down the wall to the floor. The apartment still smelled like sandalwood, the cologne I'd picked out for him online. But before me, he never wore anything. After, he wore it every day, just to prove he'd listened. He used to tell me that one day he'd hold me so tight the scent would sink into my skin. None of that mattered now. I promised myself, right there on the floor, stay away from him. We lived in 2 different worlds now. It was over. 3 days passed. I didn't hear from Silas. I told myself that was good. Then, on the 4th morning, Lexi burst into my apartment without knocking. "Avery, what did you do?" I looked up for my coffee. Nothing. She threw her phone onto the table. On the screen was a bank notification. A transfer of $5 million. From Silas. My stomach dropped. Why would he send you this? Lexi's smile was huge. Because he wants to marry me. I nearly choked. She paced around my living room, already planning the wedding. "He bought me a house yesterday. He said it's temporary because he's choosing our real home. And last night, he told me he wants me to quit my job." I stared at her. Something felt wrong. Silas had never transferred money without a reason. He always wanted to know exactly what I needed it for. He wasn't careless with his money. He was careful with me. Did he say anything else? Lexi shrugged. He asked me a strange question. What? He asked whether I had another phone. My fingers tightened around my mug. "And what did you say?" Of course I said no. She laughed. "Why would I need to?" I didn't answer. Because I knew exactly what he was doing. Silas wasn't confused anymore. He was testing her. That night, I received an unknown text. "You still hate strawberry shortcake?" My heart stopped. I stared at the screen until my hands began shaking. Another message appeared. "You still skip breakfast when you're stressed?" Then another. "You still sleep with the lights on when you're scared?" I couldn't breathe. I deleted the messages. A minute later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I didn't answer. It stopped. Then started again. I picked up. Neither of us spoke. I could hear his breathing. Low. Steady. Familiar. "Why are you calling me?" His voice came through softly. "Because you blocked me. You're dating Lexi." "I know." "Then call her." I did. My heart hammered. "Silas. Why did you know about my mango allergy?" I froze. "You could have guessed. I told you about it once. I have a good memory. You also knew I hate strawberry shortcake." I said nothing. "And you knew exactly what I'd do if Lexi ordered mango cake." My throat tightened. His voice changed. "You weren't protecting Lexi that night." I closed my eyes. "You were protecting me." "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." I couldn't, because the truth was ugly. I had stolen my cousin's face. I had lied to him for 3 months. I'd taken every gift, every late night call, every promise. Then I'd thrown him away because I was afraid he'd love the wrong person. "Avery." His voice was almost gentle. "Why did you cry when I left your apartment?" My eyes burned. I looked toward the door. "You weren't supposed to know. I watched you through the window." My blood ran cold. "I didn't leave immediately." He paused. "I saw you sitting on the floor after I walked away." I swallowed. "Silas, please." I also saw the phone. My heart stopped. The battery was dead, but that doesn't mean the phone was useless. "What did you do?" I took the serial number. I couldn't speak. I had someone recover the data. The room seemed to tilt. He continued quietly. "I read everything. Every message. Every picture. Every ridiculous conversation. Every time I told him I loved him. Every time he'd called me baby. All of it." He knew. The silence between us stretched. Then he asked the one question I wasn't prepared for. "Was any of it real?" I wiped my face. "Yes." His breathing changed. "Then why did you leave?" "Because I was scared." "Of me? Of how much I loved you?" He didn't answer. I laughed bitterly. "You were obsessed with a picture of my cousin. I couldn't stand there and watch you fall in love with someone who wasn't real. Avery. I thought if I disappeared you'd move on." "You were wrong." My eyes filled. "Silas. I never loved that face. I went still. I loved the woman behind it. Before I could answer, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow knocks. My heart jumped. Silas spoke again. Open the door. I stared at the entrance. You're here? Yes. The knock came again. I walked toward the door, on shaking legs. When I opened it, Silas stood there. No suit, no bodyguards, just jeans, a black shirt, and the same face I'd spent 3 months staring at through screen. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were fixed completely on me. Hi, baby. I couldn't move. He stepped closer. You really thought I was going to let you disappear after I found you? I whispered. What about Lexi? His expression hardened. She was never my girl. Then he held up his phone. On the screen was a message from Lexi. If you really love me, send another 10 million. Silas gave a humorless laugh. She lasted 4 days. I stared at him. You were testing her? I wanted to know whether I was wrong about you. And his eyes softened. You're still the same woman who remembered my allergy, worried about my health, and tried to stop me from eating something that could have killed me. He reached into his pocket. A small velvet box appeared in his hand. My heart stopped. I came here to ask you something. I shook my head immediately. Silas, we can't just. I know. He opened the box. Inside wasn't a ring. It was a key to my house. I blinked. You don't have to marry me. He looked directly into my eyes. You don't even have to date me. He placed the key in my palm. But if you're willing, I'd like to start over. I stared at the key, then at him. And if I say no? He smiled. Then I'll respect it. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Absolutely. He paused. After I return all the gifts, sell the houses, cancel the accounts, and spend the next 10 years regretting everything. I laughed despite myself. His smile widened. There she is. I looked down at the key. For 3 months, I convinced myself that running away was the only way to protect my heart. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe the most dangerous thing wasn't Silas finding me. Maybe it was realizing I didn't want him to leave again. And just when I reached for his hand, my phone rang. Lexi. I answered. Her voice was trembling. Avery. What? Silas lied to me. I glanced at the man standing in front of me. What did he do? Lexi whispered. He just told me I'm going to prison. My smile disappeared. For what? Her voice cracked. For stealing something that belonged to you. I looked at Silas. He said nothing. He only smiled. And suddenly, I realized this wasn't the end of my revenge. It was the beginning. Lexi's downfall was faster than I expected. Silas had already gathered screenshots of every man she'd stolen from me, every lie she'd told, and every time she'd used my identity to manipulate them. She'd even stolen money from one of them. The evidence was enough to destroy her reputation overnight. By the end of the week, boyfriend number 9 had dumped her, her friends had abandoned her, and the men she'd played were demanding their money back. Then Silas released one final piece of evidence. The original photos. Mine. The same photos Lexi had used to steal every boyfriend I'd ever had. Everyone finally learned the truth. Lexi hadn't been irresistible. She'd simply been wearing my face. She came to my apartment screaming, "You ruined my life." I opened the door. "You ruined your own life. You stole Silas from me." I laughed. "No, Lexi. I stole nothing." Silas appeared behind me. "You were never mine." Lexi's face drained. He looked at her without an ounce of emotion. "You spent 3 months pretending to be someone else. Avery spent 3 months pretending she didn't love me." His eyes shifted to me. "I've already decided which lie I prefer." Lexi burst into tears. I closed the door. And that was the last time I ever saw her. A month later, Silas and I were officially together. No fake pictures. No fake names. No secrets. He still sent me ridiculous amounts of money. I returned most of it. He complained for 3 straight days. "You're my girlfriend. Let me spoil you. You don't need to buy me everything." "Fine." He paused. "I'll buy you breakfast instead." I laughed. "That's acceptable." He grinned. "Good. Eat it and send me proof." I stared at him. "You're still doing that? Forever." 6 months later, he took me back to the same cafe where we'd first met in person. He placed a small box on the table. This time, it actually contained a ring. I looked at him. "You're sure?" He smiled. "I've never been more sure of anything." I slipped the ring onto my finger. Then I leaned across the table and whispered, "You know, technically, you fell in love with me while thinking I was Lexi." Silas laughed. "No." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I fell in love with Avery. Even when I lied? Especially then." I raised an eyebrow. "That makes no sense." He kissed my knuckles. "It does to me." And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was borrowing somebody else's love. It was mine. Completely mine. Lexi epilogue. Lexi didn't learn her lesson. She blamed Avery. Of course she did. If Avery hadn't catfished Silas, Lexi insisted, she'd still be living in a mansion with a billionaire buying her whatever she wanted. So she made a plan. If Silas wouldn't take her back, she'd find someone richer. She spent 3 months hunting through every luxury event in the city, wearing borrowed designer dresses and pretending to be the kind of woman billionaires liked. It actually worked. She met a handsome tech heir at a charity gala. He was 29, worth hundreds of millions, and completely obsessed with her within 2 weeks. Lexi thought she'd finally won. Then she introduced him to Avery. The moment he saw Avery, he froze. Lexi's smile disappeared. "What's wrong?" He pointed at Avery. "That's the woman Silas married." Lexi's face went pale. "So?" The man slowly backed away. "My mother specifically told me never to get involved with anyone from that family." "What family?" He looked at Lexi like she was insane. "The family that got you blacklisted from every major charity event in the city." Lexi's jaw dropped. Avery hadn't even done that. Silas had. And he'd apparently been doing it quietly for months. Lexi stormed home and started plotting again. She changed her name online, created new social media accounts, started posting herself beside luxury cars. She even claimed she'd been invited to Paris Fashion Week. Unfortunately, one of her new followers was Silas's assistant. Within 24 hours, every fake claim was exposed. Lexi became a laughingstock again. Still, she refused to quit. Her final attempt came almost a year later. She showed up at Avery and Silas's wedding anniversary party wearing a dress that cost more than most people's yearly salary. She walked straight up to Avery. "You really think you won?" Avery looked her over. I thought you stopped counting. Lexi's smile twitched. I can still take him from you. Silas appeared behind Avery. He didn't even look at Lexi. He simply leaned down and kissed his wife. Who is this? Avery smiled. Honestly, I have no idea. Lexi's face turned scarlet. That was the moment she realized something horrifying. Avery wasn't competing with her anymore. She'd already forgotten the competition existed. Lexi stormed out of the party. She swore she'd get revenge. She swore she'd become richer, prettier, more successful, more desirable. She swore that one day Avery would regret humiliating her. And for the next several years, Lexi chased that imaginary victory with everything she had. Meanwhile, Avery barely remembered her name, which, for someone like Lexi, was probably the cruelest punishment imaginable.